Let's talk about avatars in Magic. This was a user request, but I'm going to jump ahead to this. I sort of talked about specific avatars from, I think, Prophecy, but not avatars in general recently. This card from Through the Omen Paths, which for those of you who don't know, it's the digital version of the Spider-Man set. Wizards does not have the digital license, I assume because of Marvel Snap. So there's a whole Universes Within version of the Spider-Man set. Scions of the Spider is, I assume, a reference to Scion of the Dragon, which was like one of the first 5-color dragon cards that was like viable. While the Scions here aren't avatars themselves, the existence of an Spider raises questions. I'll get into what an being is in a second. They are avatars too. If we rewind all the way back to Magic's past, there were a few avatars at the very beginning. There was Personal Incarnation, which is just kind of a confused flavor card. But the first one that wasn't Personal Incarnation was Gaia's Liege. Avatar is sort of a representation or manifestation of a greater power. The example I use to get it to click for Westerners is that in Christian lore, Jesus is an avatar of God. In Magic terms, an avatar doesn't have to be a representation of an actual god, but it is a representation of a greater power or concept. The earliest ones that were worshipped like gods were from Fallen Empires, the Hand of Justice, and the Ebon Praetor, which, this art, man. And these seem to be embodiments of, like, beliefs or philosophies more so than a representation of an actual god. Then we got Autumn Willow, who's sort of like the soul of nature in the homelands. And this would be a common thing. Oftentimes when there is an elemental that is like an incarnation of nature, it's like above a regular elemental, it'll get an avatar type line as well. Sort of like Gaia's Liege did. There are, of course, the random avatar of something or other. There are a lot of cycles of these in Magic, and they're usually there for mechanical reasons. The cycle that we got during Legions, I forget what set symbol this is. But these are, during that whole set, the creature types are becoming like embodiments of themselves until we get the like ultimate embodiment of, like, for instance here, wizardness. But there's also like a zombie and a goblin version. Phage got changed to be an avatar later to sort of follow these rules more closely because she was a woman named Jessica who became sort of the embodiment or avatar of the Numina Kuber's power. Kuber is all over like the Cabal on Dominaria. He was their original like god. He was a wizard once, but sort of ascended into being something more than that. Corona is sort of a similar situation. She became an avatar of like all of Dominaria's mana, which severely damaged the plane just through her very existence. On Lorwyn and Shadowmoor, all of the divinity on the plane was represented by like these spirit avatars. And then on Alara, we get our first like world soul with an actual card. Progenitus is the soul of Alara. What that means is like a manifestation of like all of the world's magic, sort of like Corona, but not in the sort of destructive way. She was created by draining all of the world's magic. And then the Child of Alara is like the avatar of the Maelstrom's power. People get tripped up with the Soul of cycle because everyone thinks they're the world souls, but they're not legendary, which is what the like ultimate world soul of a plane would need to be. These are sort of like representations of an aspect of each of the worlds. All right, now talking about an Spider, we have the Dragon. The Dragon is sort of the primal essence of dragonkind in the entire multiverse. Being is sort of like the platonic ideal of the essence of something. We have a similar one in Cats named Arabo based on his lore. And now we know there's probably an Spider out there. Just as a side note, Golem and Drago have no relation to the other beings. Gishath goes literally to what an avatar is supposed to be. It is the manifestation of the threefold sun on Ixalan. Now this is muddled a little bit because we know they're actual gods in Ixalan's core, and the threefold sun is sort of like a combination of a few different beliefs from the core. So it's not super clear if this is an avatar of the Sun Empire's beliefs in a threefold sun, or it's an avatar of like Kimil or the other gods in the core. But it's Dinosaur Jesus, we don't need to ask too many questions. In terms of power itself manifesting as things, the power from the Null Moon, which was this massively powerful white mana artifact created by the Thran thousands of years ago and then shattered during the Phyrexian invasion. Evra is like a representation of that power. And then I talked earlier about elemental avatars. Multani is a marrow sorcerer, which means a like the ultimate elemental embodiment, like the living consciousness of an entire forest. Whereas Gaia is the world soul, the living elemental consciousness of nature itself on the plane. So Gaia is like a step above Multani. Merit Lage is an avatar of some greater power. We don't know much about what's going on there. And Merit Lage has largely been relegated to the sidelines because she's right in the Eldrazi space, the cosmic horror space that's been well defined by the Eldrazi now. As the living guild pact of the plane, Niv Mizzet has become the avatar of Ravnica. Not the world soul, but like an avatar of the guild pact, the magic itself. Lady of Ataria is another sort of classic avatar situation. Also known as Lady of the Mountain, the card that's been around since Legends. She is a dwarven god that is meant to be like the child of Gaia, the world soul, the ultimate nature god, and Fears or Fires, I've heard it pronounced both ways, which is the dwarven god of mountains and all that stuff. Old school planeswalkers were powerful enough that they could create avatars of their own, like there's a Serra avatar, we know about that. Soul of Windgrace is, before Windgrace died, he poured a huge chunk of his power into the island continent of Urborg to protect it for the future. And the Soul of Windgrace is sort of that power's remnant. Then the last one I want to talk about are the Archaics on Arcavios. Archaics are a really interesting example because they're actually avatars of one of the oracles of the plane. We learn in the Strixhaven D&D book that they are actually like when an oracle who's appointed by the founder dragons dies, their soul travels back to like the beginning of Arcavios and manifests as an archaic, and then they go through life sort of knowing the future. And so they become this sort of like inscrutable cryptic entity because they don't want to mess with time. But anyway, that's the gist of avatars. They can manifest in a bunch of different ways, but the like big ticket thing about them is that they are representations or manifestations of a greater power. And in some cases, that power is like a real, more powerful being that maybe doesn't have a physical form. In some cases, that power is magic itself. And in some cases, that power is just belief. Anyway, if you got something else you want me to cover, leave it in the notes.